The night feels different once you start moving again. Not fast, just forward. There's a soft kind of momentum that comes after stillness. Like your body remembers before your mind agrees. That's where I've been. Not starting over, not chasing anything, just noticing motion again. The world keeps moving the way it always has, but something underneath has shifted. The work that used to drain me feels almost human again. The light, it hits differently. Maybe that's all becoming really is. That subtle re-entry into your own life. The slow return of sound after silence. This is the becoming. Phase 2. The becoming. Tonight, the light is small, just a sliver against the dark. But even a sliver can spark something wild again. Part 1. The quiet realization. There was a time when everything looked aligned. Work was going well, projects were landing. I was building things that mattered, and it felt good to be seen for it. And when the day ended, I crossed into another world. One built on music, stories, and late-night conversations that stretched until dawn. The fandom wasn't just a hobby. It was a community, creativity, purpose. I poured into both worlds with the same heart. Designing by day, supporting by night. Two forms of devotion that made me feel whole. I thought I could hold them both forever. That balance of ambition and love. But somewhere in the middle of all that brightness, something began to slip. The hours blurred. The noise grew. Every space that once filled me began to ask for more than I could give. At work, I was still the calm, dependable one. And in the fandom, I was the one who showed up, who created, who cared. I didn't notice how tired I'd become. How thin the line between passion and depletion had gotten. I told myself it was just another season, one more sprint, one more late night. But even light can turn harsh when it doesn't stop shining. I was burning quietly, beautifully, and I didn't know yet what it would cost to keep that glow. It looked like peace. But sometimes, steadiness can hide exhaustion. I'd been holding things together for so long. I didn't notice how heavy it had become. That was the beginning of something I couldn't name yet. The quiet realization that I'd changed while I wasn't looking. Part 2. Too close to the light. At work, things were good. Projects landed. My team trusted me. I was tired in a way that made sense. Effort turned into outcomes. On the surface, I looked steady. In the other world, the one built on music and community, something fractured. The conversation turned to rest. People said that the boys I loved were overworked, and that the loving thing was to boycott. to pull back support and force them to stop. I knew exhaustion. I lived it too. But I didn't believe deciding for them was care, because I believed in their autonomy, their right to choose how they worked, when they paused, how they created. That's why my opinions were strong. Support, to me, meant trust. Yeah, I said that out loud. That was enough. Backlash arrived quickly. First comments, then threads, then whole timelines twisting what I said. It stopped being concern and became control dressed up as kindness, jealousy dressed as righteousness. People I thought were friends joined in, and some liked the wrong posts. Some went quiet in the right conversations. The silence hurt more than the shouting, and I stopped knowing who was safe. Then the documentary aired. I wasn't a cameo. I was one of the 5 girls they followed. My love for the band visible on the screen. And the noise erupted again. Not because of what I said, but because of my face, my normal face. A neutral expression turned into evidence that I hated someone I adored. They made a story out of a frame and wore it like the truth. Just like that, my name spread across platforms, posts, edits, threads. Strangers assigned motives to me, spoke like they owned my story, dragged me through rooms I'd never entered. By Christmas, the messages turned vicious. Death threats mixed with mockery, sitting where holiday wishes should have been. I closed my DMs. I locked everything down. Not out of guilt, out of survival. There were, of course, people who fought for me. Friends who spoke up when it wasn't easy, who defended me when it cost them something. And I hold on to them. But for every one of them, there were dozens more who wanted to see me gone. That imbalance could crush anyone. And I felt small. Alone in spaces that used to feel like home. I worried that my friends wouldn't want me anymore. That I had become too heavy, too complicated to stand beside. Sometimes people recognize me in public. They knew my name, my face, but I didn't know theirs. That imbalance was terrifying. Idols had managers, teams, walls. I was a regular person, a regular fan, without that kind of protection. And somehow, I had become a target. I also lost something else. Something smaller but somehow heavier. I couldn't fangirl the way I used to. Every post, every sentence carried weight now. What used to be a joy, a simple reaction, a laugh, a burst of love, felt like a statement that could be weaponized. I missed the ease of it. The way I once shouted my love into the void without fear. After everything, I still loved them just as much, maybe even more. But loving them out loud no longer felt safe. Somewhere along the way, people started seeing me as something I never was. They called me narcissistic, self-absorbed. as if I'd climb up onto a pedestal of my own making. But I never asked for that kind of attention. I was just a fan who loved loudly, who tried to make spaces brighter. But they projected their resentment and called it truth. I became an idea instead of a person, a mirror they could shatter to feel powerful. It was surreal, watching strangers invent a version of me and then tear her apart. I wanted to scream, "That's not me!" But by then, the echo was louder than my voice. That's when I stopped trying to prove anything. The weight of their projections was never mine to carry, but it still left marks. It sent me somewhere dark, a place I still can't put into words, like losing an art I had spent years perfecting and realizing I might never make it the same way again. But the muscle memory stayed. The innocence didn't. I never apologized for what I believed. I still wouldn't. But belief didn't protect me from grief. I stepped away to breathe. The hate never fully stopped to this day, but distance made it smaller. And in that quiet, my voice became audible again. Thin at first, then steadier. That was what the storm left behind. That was the cost of brightness. Part 3, The Emptiness. After everything, I stepped away. Not from life, but from the noise that started to live inside me. I needed air. I went to Seattle for a while to see my friends, to rest, to remember what quiet could sound like. Most days I slept late. My body was still in survival mode, but it finally had permission to stop running. Evenings were slower. Takeout dinners, long talks, laughter that came easier than it had in months. Being surrounded by people who create for the joy of it stirred something inside me. They made art the way children made noise without needing permission. Just being near that made me feel the spark flicker again. There were moments when I cried without warning, and I'm not someone who cries easily. But sometimes grief leaks out once the world finally feels safe enough to hold it. The tears surprised me, but I let them come. And somewhere in those quiet nights, I realized how close I'd come to burning out completely. I had burned so bright for so long, for work, for community, for the causes I believed in, that there was almost nothing left of me to glow with. It felt like grieving a version of myself I'd never get back. The one who gave everything without wondering what it would cost. Seattle wasn't about transformation. It was about breathing again, letting the exhaustion exist without apology, letting softness count as progress. When I came home, the silence followed. But it wasn't the same kind. It carried warmth this time, like a room that had finally been aired out. But still, the cost lingered, even after rest. There were parts of me that still refused to switch the light back on, even after I rebuilt some pieces of myself. None of them really fit anymore. Part 4. The Becoming. When I came home, the quiet felt heavier than before. The air was softer, but the silence inside me was still loud. I tried to rest, to write, to love the things I used to, but nothing sparked. It was like my body remembered how to move, but my heart didn't. Everything that once lit me up sat there, dim and unreachable. I'd burned so bright for so long that even peace felt boring. The world outside looked the same, but something in me had gone dark. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad in the way people expect. I was empty, hollowed out by everything it took to survive. I kept trying to find her, the version of me who felt alive. I looked for her in playlists, in old notes, in the spaces where I used to pour myself out so easily. But she was gone, and I didn't know how to mourn her properly. That was the hardest part. Not the hate, not the exhaustion, but the quiet grief that came after. The grief of no longer feeling like myself. So I sat in silence for a long time, let it press against me until it didn't hurt to breathe. Let it be what it was. Because even in stillness, something was shifting beneath it. Closing. Grief has a way of reshaping you. It carves out new spaces where light can fall differently. You don't choose it. You just learn to live inside what it leaves behind. I stopped waiting to feel like myself again. That version of me was gone. But she made this one possible. What's left isn't the same kind of brightness. It's softer now, more careful, but it's mine. I think that's what this part of life is. Not moving on, but moving with. Carrying the ache and the wonder side by side. And somewhere in that quiet, something in me is still becoming. The moon keeps changing, but it never hurries. Each phase has its own work. The unseen stretching, the quiet adjustments of light. I think I've been learning that too. How to move without rushing. How to grow without leaving myself behind. This season has been a kind of middle ground. Not the dark, not the glow. Just a steady light that comes when you stop trying to be either. I'm still learning what that means, but for now, it feels enough. The world keeps moving the way it always has, and somewhere inside it, so do I. Thanks for being here. This was After the Moonlight. I'm Vora. Until next time, keep gathering the light.